we go ahead and get started, Nicole?
Well, we've got a quorum, and I have not heard anything from Commissioner Altman. Oh, wait. So it's if you'd like to start, yes, we can start. We know that Chair Malari is going to be absent this evening.
Okay, well, since we have a quorum and it's 6:31 now, why don't we go ahead and get started? I'd like to call this meeting to order and proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, just one moment. I will screen share. Oh. Goodness. I apologize for having some technical difficulties here. Just one moment. Bear with me for one moment, please. Okay. Oh my goodness. Hold on. We can just
troubles logging in to the meeting. So
okay, just bear
on his way.
Bear with me for one moment. It seems like the computer gremlins have gotten us this evening. Just bear with me. Okay, so all right, I'm going to go ahead and screen share the flag. One moment. There we go. I apologize for that.
No worries. Okay, ready for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands for, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right.
And as far as the meeting announcement, it is as stated on the agenda.
And would you like a roll call? Vice Chair Wong.
Yes, please.
Okay. Commissioner Goff.
Present.
Commissioner Altman.
Present.
Commissioner Navarro.
Present.
And Vice Chair Wong.
Present.
And we know that Chair Malari is absent this evening.
Okay, great. Do we have any public comment, Nicole, for items not on the agenda?
We do. We have Beth Marcus. Ms. Marcus, I am going to unmute you. And please begin speaking.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, happy birthday, Eric.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I was just wondering, can anybody give me an update on what's going on with the building that Dr. Singh has purchased on Melvin and Poco?
Hi, Beth. This is Brent. I don't have any current information on plans for the building, but I could find out.
Well, the reason why I was asking is PG&E's been working over there and they've got 2 barriers out there. And I overheard one of them say something about they were going to demolish the building. And I sort of heard that, but I wasn't sure if that was going to take place or not.
I can check. I'm not aware of a demolition permit, although certainly Dr. Singh could apply for one if it's what he chose. But I can find out and get back to you.
Oh, okay. And then one other quick question. And I don't know if it's you guys or if I have to go to the fire department. But the weeds in front, okay, you know how I feel about Napa Cove, okay. No, let's not get into that. I mean, forget the project, everything, but the weeds that are out front, what do we do about that? There's a lot of weeds on Melvin Road where the guy who stores firewood and in front of the Napa Cove and where the horses used to be.
Well, we can certainly look into that. Once the weeds dry out and become a fire hazard, then that might be something the fire district looks at. We can take a look and see whether the weeds that are there might violate some of the city's municipal code for commercial properties.
Okay, okay. Thank you. I'm not complaining. I just asking. But I do like that Les Lawson keeps his property clean all the time, and I admire him for that. So, okay. Thank you.
If there's anybody else who would like to make public comment on items not on the agenda, please raise your hand at this time. Nobody is raising their hand, Commissioner Wong, Vice Chair Wong.
Thank you, Nicole. Do we have any agenda changes?
Vice Chair Wong, we have no agenda changes tonight.
Thank you, Director Cooper. Well, I guess we're ready for our presentation on the local roadway safety plan with our Public Works Director, Erica Amon-Smithies. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Wong and Planning Commission. I want to introduce Catherine Kleinschmidt. Well, first of all, I'm Erica Smithies, Public Works Director, and I'd like to introduce Catherine Kleinschmidt, the GHD, Senior Traffic Project Engineer on this awesome local roadway safety plan and her presentation. So I'll let you take it from here, Catherine.
Thank you so much. Greetings, everyone, Vice Chair Wong and fellow commissioners. I'm going to share my screen. Do I have that option? Here we go. Sorry, it took me a minute to find it. Let's see if that works. Now, can you see what I'm sharing?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, thank you so much for joining me for this presentation. This is a similar presentation that we made to council for informational purposes. So if you did tune into that meeting, it'll be some, repetitive information, but we wanted to present similar information and show you some updates with some of the community engagement that we've gotten a lot of different comments on this plan. So the agenda for today, we're going to go over the overall background, how the local roadway safety plans are formulated, the process, as well as what the requirement is for the future highway safety improvement program funding. As well as throughout the development of this plan, we did engage our stakeholder working group. And we've formulated some guiding principles, vision, goals, and mission statement. It is a data-driven document, so we did look at the past 5 years of collisions. There's a project website where we've got interactive map comments we've been collecting, public survey, as well as the draft report. And then we'll kind of go over some of the current safety projects that are within the city right now, as well as some recommended ones. So the way that this plan is kind of complementing the strategic highway safety plan for California, it's California Safe Roads. The requirement is they have to update that every 5 years to get federal funding. And now Caltrans is requiring each agency have a local roadway safety plan to be eligible for highway safety improvement funding. The next cycle is actually current right now. It's cycle 11, and they've got to call for projects out. The overall process is they want you to establish your leadership. So Erica is the city lead, as well as we've got a stakeholder working group with important stakeholders throughout this process. We'll go over that coming up, as well as we did look at all the collision data. We determined our emphasis areas, strategies, and ways to incorporate those into the plan. This is showing you the 5 traffic safety E's that are directly out of the state's strategic highway safety plan. So not only do they want you to look at like engineering countermeasures, but they want you to also look at emergency response, education, enforcement, as well as emerging technologies, because there's just a lot coming out there with these smart cities type applications. So our stakeholders that we engaged, we had a couple meetings. I'll go over the meeting dates coming up. Obviously the city, different departments within the city, as well as Napa County was, the state highway going right bisecting your city. We did engage Caltrans, District 4, the police department, the fire department, MBTA, Napa County Bicycle Coalition, as well as your school districts. And we had 2 different meetings. The first meeting was in May. We discussed kind of the process and overall, what we're looking at is, the safety data and seeing what goals and priorities we want to focus on. Out of that meeting came some emphasis areas, looking at bicycle to vehicle collisions, pedestrian to vehicle collisions, intersections, distracted driving, and aggressive driving, speeding. These also complement the state's emphasis areas. And then on our second meeting in June, we then discussed a lot of the public comments. We had the website live, and we had some other recent developments with going further into the analysis and looking at possible safety countermeasures that feed directly into HSIP funding, the Highway Safety Improvement Program, and then developed our draft. So here's our vision, mission statement, goals, as well as the city has a motto and pledge already. We love, we heart safe streets. And so we wanted to complement that with our vision. The city of American Canyon will strive towards the elimination of all traffic fatalities, severe injuries, while increasing safe, healthy, and equitable mobility for all. This is very similar to a Vision Zero type vision, and we felt that was appropriate for this plan. And how we're going to get there is we're going to provide a safe, sustainable, and equitable multimodal transportation system for all users. And then there's some goals that came out of the plan just based on the collision data. We want to, reduce fatal and severe injury collisions, as well as, look at strategies on State Route 29, how we can implement rear end collisions. That was a significant collision type we noticed, and a lot of those were due to unsafe speed, as well as we want to look at broadside collisions at the city jurisdiction intersections. There was a good amount of those type of collisions, and how we can reduce it with looking at strategies to increase visibility. Other things, we want to improve the multimodal transportation system in a context sensitive design, as well as improving the safety around the schools. That was important to the stakeholders as well as within this plan. So collision data, this is showing American Canyon where we're seeing collision densities are popping up. This is kind of showing you the breakdown, 671. The majority of the collisions are occurring on State Route 29 at the intersection, but the city is also having more intersection type collisions when compared to the segments. You can kind of see the hot spots here at Donaldson Way there, Napa Junction, Toro, as well as we look down here at Floston Road and American Canyon, Silver Oak and American Canyon, and then down here at Kimberly. So we're looking at city roadway collisions right now. So this is just the trends we're starting to see within on the city roadways, not state highway. There was 2 fatals in the past 5 years, 5 severe injury. The majority were property damage only, but we really want to focus on how to mitigate some of these injury type collisions. And then looking at the vehicle collision type, the majority was sideswipe, but very similar. There was also broadside and hit object. There was 16 vehicle to pedestrian collisions, and we'll get into the bicycle collisions coming up. They're within these codes per the California Vehicle Code. They're treated as a vehicle. State Route 29, we noticed we also had some fatals and severe injuries, 2 fatals, 10 severe injuries, more injury collisions. You're starting to see less, almost half are property damage, but a good amount are almost injury. And the majority is overwhelming rear end collisions. There was also 4 vehicle to pedestrian collisions. This map shows you where all the severe injury collisions were occurring as well as where the fatals were. So we're focusing in on those locations and trying to understand what's, causing these type of collisions. The majority that when we start looking at severe injury based on collision type was broadside. That's a typical, left turning type collision at an intersection. But we're also seeing there's vehicle to pedestrian. And then with our fatal, it was a mix of different type of collision types. Now I mapped the pedestrian to vehicle collisions, and next we'll show the bicycle to vehicle collisions. This is showing you some of those severe injuries that we just looked at were pedestrian to vehicle collisions. Some occurred at night, some were in the day. And then there was 2 on State Route 29, as well as 1 on American Canyon Road. The majority of those are occurring in a crosswalk at an intersection. So we want to look at how to improve those areas for pedestrians. And then the bicycle collisions. One of the fatals down here on State Route 29 was a bicycle vehicle collision at night. And there was a mix of violations for these. And there were a good amount of bicycle to vehicle collisions wrong side of the road, as well as it's kind of interspersed with the different violations there. And there was also 1 severe injury on American Canyon. So an update on our public engagement. I don't know if any of you have been to the website, but it's getting a lot of hits. I'm really impressed at the city. When you start looking, I've done a lot of these local road safety plans with other jurisdictions, and we are really getting a lot of action compared to your population base. This is kind of showing your interactive map. When I presented this to council, I think it was just over almost like a week and a half ago. I think we had 100 less interactive map comments. We had about 151. Now we've got 245. We had 44 survey responses, then now we have 80. So this is just showing you that I think it was that block party, or somehow the city's getting more people to get to the website. So we're really noticing there's peaks at different times. And then just looking at, other LRSPs, this is typical of 50, 60,000 population size. So that's really good. I did LRSPs for Windsor, towns of Windsor, and also Healdsburg. And Windsor is a similar population base, and they only got 64 interactive map comments. So I just really think we're getting a lot of good feedback for this plan. Looking at where the majority of the comments are, we did a little heat map here. There's a lot of concerns on Elliott Way between Benton Way and American Canyon Road. It's kind of a parallel route here that feeds right into the, the school area. A lot of the concerns were due to speeds, people not yielding to pedestrians in the crosswalks, violating the stop signs. There was also concerns about James Way between Wilson Road and Donaldson. That's in here, as well as there was concerns at Wetlands Edge Road, Donaldson Way, Newell Road, and Melvin. The majority of the comments were driving, but we did also get a good mix of pedestrian, biking, and school. So some of these projects you might be aware of. I'm just going to hit this pretty quickly. The city's been doing a lot of projects and improving safety. One that's recently been completed and will be pretty soon will be accepted is that Devlin Road and Vine Trail extension. So now that's been completed with the roundabout. And that will help improve the circulation system throughout your city, as well as the Green Island Road reconstruction and widening project that will be kind of connecting to that area. That's going to add a lot of safety improvements with the Class 1 multi-use trail crossing improvements, signal, railroad crossing, improvements. And then Watson Road, Watson Ranch major development is an ongoing development that's adding a lot of safety improvements with roundabouts and pedestrian crossing enhancements, bikeways, all that. Now, the city's also doing a lot of different education components, as well as they have a traffic calming program. Recently installed speed cushions on Wetlands Edge. I believe Melvin Road is also requesting those. So that's the next one they're looking at. But they're also doing a lot of outreach, because you can't improve safety necessarily with just engineering. You have to do some education. So there's a lot of ongoing programs with bike rodeo, the child seat, community safety, this critical mass that was put on here at the community park. Really great with the police department as well as Parks and Rec kind of working together. There's a lot of programs on the city website as well. So we really want to complement these plans and have our local road safety plan kind of build off some of the education that's already going on. There's also other projects in way, the Benton Way enhanced crosswalk, class 2 bike lanes and intersection improvements at various locations, Elliott Drive enhanced crosswalk improvement, Melvin Road sidewalk and drainage improvement, and then the ARPA, all these will have different safety improvements that can help enhance different modes, vehicles, pedestrians, and bicycles. And so this is just highlighting some of those projects. This is where the class 2 bike lanes will be on Silver Oak Trail and Donaldson Way, and also looking at the crossing improvement here by Elliott Drive. And you're probably aware there's also a big project that's going through right now for State Route 29. MBTA is leading it. We're in the PID process. It's almost approved, the project initiation document. This is one of the recommendations, is to really, put different traffic control devices in, having a roundabout corridor within slowing speeds, moving traffic, and enhancing safety and multimodal improvements. So eventually this one will be going through the project approval and environmental document phase, and then they'll be going to the PSNE. These improvements can occur as soon as 2024, 2025, go into construction. So back to the LRSP, we did look at the data, the collision data, as well as public comments, as well as different feedback from stakeholders. And we've got some priority locations, our intersection on Flosden and Daniel, a couple intersections on American Canyon Road, Rio Del Mora and Los Altos, Flosden Road and Canyon Creek, Flosden and Via Bellagio, as well as American Canyon and Via Ferenzi. We've also got our segments too. This is not including necessarily all the State Route 29 intersections and segments. This is just kind of including some of the city focused here. Newell Drive, American Canyon Road, Pioli Loop, American Canyon, Flosden, again, American Canyon, Silver Oak, and Benton Way. So these are all areas that we are focused on making safety improvements, and a lot of them are around your schools like Silver Oak and Benton Way, as well as where we were seeing some of the collision issues. So I'm just going to go over some safety countermeasures. These are ones that feed naturally into the Highway Safety Improvement Program. There could be other funding mechanisms. Some of these can be incorporated with maintenance type projects, but these are ones just to highlight now. So for the signalized intersections within the city, you can look at improving your hardware, your lenses, your back plates, and as well as doing those retroreflective borders, increasing the number of size if some of them are deficient, as well as the number of heads per lane. Looking at signal coordination and making sure all your clearance intervals for pedestrians, red and yellow, are all appropriate for the conditions. And then one of the other things you can do is look at adding a leading pedestrian interval. That helps to get pedestrians ahead of the vehicle. So it's like a 5-second leading interval for pedestrians to establish their presence in the crosswalk, and has shown to really improve safety. And these are some of the things also recommended on State Route 29. And then other things are improving sight distance, as well as looking at installing high visibility crosswalks. This one is on American Canyon Road, as well as maybe installing a pedestrian crossing on Flossden Road and Daniel, and looking at, and that one was previously identified. So we're just complementing that, as well as looking at enhancements by the school on Benton Way and Chaucer and Huntington Way. Another one is you can evaluate the traffic control, and one of these locations might benefit from a mini roundabout. So that's for the intersections. And then the segments, looking at improving lighting on State Route 29, as well as looking at how to delineate the fixed objects on the side of the road. We had a lot of fixed object collisions. So looking at those segments and how to improve the visibility of those objects along the roadway that are in the clear zone, as well as we're finding certain areas could really benefit from these speed feedback mechanisms, and they can also collect speed at the same time. So that could also help to bring awareness of the speed limit in that area. Other improvements are improving the paint median end caps and putting some raised reflective markers at American Canyon Road, Newell, as well as looking at where we're having more head-on collisions at Paoli Loop Road, looking at installing a centerline rumble strip. And then in the location on American Canyon Road, where you have existing barriers along the side of the road that are getting hit, looking at installing a guardrail there with those nice end treatments, the crash end treatments, to really help improve that. And other countermeasures can involve in evaluating the site distance. So not everything's going to be accomplished with engineering. There's other strategies with education and looking at how we can partner with different regional agencies, driver education, as well as, speed management campaigns, different bicycle pedestrian education, as well as looking at emerging technologies, making sure bicycles are picked up at the intersections, and looking at upgrading your push buttons to accessible pedestrian signals. Other things is enforcement. It's so important to have enforcement, because that really helps curb people's behaviors and how we can improve that, especially focused at those locations where we're having excessive speeds or DUIs. And we want to maintain our, the emergency access for locations. So we want to make sure with our improvements, we're always, maintaining or improving and providing that preemption at signalized intersections. And these are other countermeasures that can be applied more systemically. We've got a bunch listed over there with, sidewalk gaps, add sidewalks, crossing enhancements, LPIs, flashing yellows where you have permitted or doing a protected, the green bike conflict markings. I don't think you guys have any in the city, so that would be a nice enhancement. And then as well as possible bike boxes at the intersections. And where we are, we have been really, kind of getting this plan together and doing a lot of outreach. We will be closing the interactive map and survey this Friday. Right now, the LRSP is on the website for review, and it's also been sent to the stakeholders. Comments are due August 5th. And then we're headed back to council for adoption on August 16th. And I just also wanted to highlight that HSIP, the HSIP Cycle 11 call for projects does close September 12th. And this is a requirement of that grant application. So it'd be great to not only get the plan done, but have the city go after some money for some of these improvements. But this is a living document, different metrics can be tracked towards the goal. But it needs a formal update every 5 years, which is kind of consistent with the strategic highway safety plan. So that is the end of my presentation, and I will open it up to questions. Thank you.
Can I add something first? Thank you, Catherine, but one of the goals is that some people may think this is coming in fast, but the idea is that we can try to go after at least one grant this year with this adopted plan and not miss another 2-year cycle, 2-3-year cycle for the HSIP grant, as it is a new requirement. So with that, thank you.
Of course. Thank you, Ms. Kleinschmidt, for the excellent presentation. Commissioners, does anyone want to start with your questions or comments?
I can jump if you like.
Okay.
First, I have probably a pretty good understanding of HSIP, and it's a fantastic opportunity to get funding for improvements. I know some of the larger cities in the area, Oakland for one, is constantly receiving and spending lots of HSIP money and doing some, serious improvements on their road network. A couple of things that I have hit me as listening and reading through this and all. And yes, I agree. It was an excellent presentation, and thank you. I also have looked at the county / state tip information, and I'm puzzled, and I don't know if this is the right venue or whatnot, because I don't see any of this type of stuff for American Canyon coming up on the tip, which is another, funding mechanism, this traffic improvement project or program, I forget which, that is going on. So that's the first question, is kind of why isn't American Canyon kind of prominent on the tip, since there's a lot of stuff, both local and on, Highway 29 that we need to address. Next is just the next two that I've got for now are both kind of pet peeves of mine. And our public works director heard me talk about one of them very recently, but Highway 29 northbound at American Canyon Road, there is a left turn lane that is very, very short. It is a very simple thing, I would imagine, because it is a dirt median, to break out the curve on it presently. And even if Caltrans doesn't want to officially and pave it, but extend that lane, I think that would do a lot in a number of regards, including reducing rear end collisions, because you have people stacked up and stuck behind vehicles in the left lane, waiting to get into that turn lane, and they can't because it's just not long enough. And it's a choke point, adding to greenhouse gas emissions, adding to burning of fuel and wasting people's money. And I think it does contribute to the accident rate at that particular intersection. So that's one, and I'm hoping that, because I haven't seen that mentioned here, that's something that can potentially be incorporated as we move forward. And then the second is a lesser issue, but am I correct in assuming that the focus on quote unquote unsafe driving, meaning generally speaking, speeding, is because it's the easiest to enforce, and it's what police end up ticketing most? Because observationally, it would seem that issues such as failure to signal, improper turning, and so on. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, but it's virtually every day. If I am driving on West American Canyon Road, I see people from one of the side streets doing illegal turns onto that road, going 2 lanes instead of moving into the left lane, which is what they're supposed to do. And, it just seems to me that while I do see speeding on American Canyon Road, I think I see more issues of failure to signal and improper turns than I do speeding. So that's my questions and comments for now.
Okay, well, I'll try to answer some of them, Eric. And then I think I might have to pass some to Erica, especially with the tip, because I don't know why you
Okay.
guys don't have projects on the tip. I'd be happy to help, but I don't know. I'm not overseeing that. But as far as Caltrans was a stakeholder, and there were a lot of issues on State Route 29, and they have their own HSIP funding, just so you know. So we can definitely email them and let them know this issue, and they're probably very aware. And there was a lot of stakeholders that were very vocal about the issues on State Route 29. I know they recently did some adaptive traffic signal control, which it should, you know, the timing should adapt to it, but it's new. I don't know if it's adjusting correctly, because I'm hearing it's not still working as good as you want it to. But they did add a couple leading pedestrian intervals at a couple locations. Yeah, the city could do some improvements, go after HSIP funding on the state highway, but you need a letter of support from Caltrans to do that. And then there's needs obviously in the city. So you got to figure out, okay. So I think the best route with the Caltrans stuff is to really reach out to them directly. They do seem somewhat responsive, and they are really looking at safety. And I could just show them the safety issue there with some of those collisions because of the spillback in the, yeah, that was one of our hot spots. So I'd be happy to coordinate that. And then as far as, was there another, question in regards to the police department, I would have to refer to them because I'm not sure, you know, but, you know, violations should be enforced regardless of if it's speeding or improper turn. But maybe, I don't know the stats with that. So I will pass it back to Erica.
I'm here to help write grants and get us more TIP funding. The one that was on there that was removed recently was the OBAG 2 funding, which is for the Class 1 trail on the Green Island Road. That will go back on as OBAG 3 when it's awarded officially. It may not be publicly aware, but we traded funds to help the Class 1 Divine Trail. We were requested, the city of St. Helena and the city of American Canyon were asked to release our OBAG 2 funds to help get that project constructed in the North Valley, with the guarantee that we would get our OBAG 3, we get our Class 1 $1 million back on our OBAG 3 round, which we can, would not derail our construction timeline of next year. So, but I'm here to help get more funding, and that's why we're here tonight, so we don't miss out on a funding opportunity to get back on that TIP map and a lot more projects delivered using other people's funds. Excuse me, other federal or state funds.
OPM is good. It's good. Other people's money, that works.
But also, you know, we did successfully get awarded $5.5 million from the Economic Development Administration. We were officially awarded this week, so that's going to help us get to the finish line on the Green Island Road. So I don't know if everyone is aware of that, but just so you know, that's big money, and we're going to start raking in more. So thank you.
Thank you, both of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Altman. Any other comments from our other commissioners?
Sure, I'll just jump in. Thank you. First, Catherine, again, thank you for the presentation, all the information put together in the report. It's fantastic to read through. You know, it's very clear by looking at a lot of the maps, a lot of the issues fall around the Highway 29 corridor and around schools, which I think is probably halfway expected. My concern, or the things that I saw that I liked in there, was really the comments about improving the pedestrian lead-in time for the crosswalks. I think that's a huge component, especially around the school areas. And then the new signals with the reflective borders on them, and bigger, because I know that's an issue in a couple of our roadways, especially on Highway 29, I think, going across 29 from American Canyon Road. But I also want to hop in a little bit on Commissioner Altman's thing about enforcement. I know everything was kind of speed related, and there were some other things, but I know I walk early in this town every single morning, and there are some serious issues with people who don't like stop signs or don't see stop signs or don't acknowledge stop signs, especially going down West American Canyon Road. I see every morning certain people just run them. They don't hardly even slow and go. They just keep on going. That's a little bit of a concern for me, especially with the numbers of pedestrians being hit in crosswalks, which you know signified in your report. So I think that is something else that maybe, you know, when enforcement gets a view on some of this, maybe something they can try and focus on a little bit is some of that incomplete stops at stop signs. Happens early in the morning, and then on Highway 29, which I've come across lately, is people decide that the far right shoulder is now an express lane up Highway 29, and they just flare off to the right, and away they go. Somebody's going to get hurt really bad with that because they're moving. I mean, they're going 50, 60 miles an hour just to get around some of those cars at stoplights. But other than that, I appreciate the report, all the information in there was good to see. Thank you for your work on that.
Thank you, Commissioner Goff. Any other commissioner comments before we go to public comment?
Yes, I just thank you, as everyone else says, a great report. Really clear and easy to understand, and I really like the goals and the mission, and the motto is very cool. And I think it'll go a long way to helping. I would like to hear a little bit more about the roundabouts that would go through American Canyon, and I'm curious if there's any good examples and how those roundabouts change things, especially around goals of Vision Zero. I mean, how is there significant changes in fatalities and accidents with the roundabouts?
Yes, Commissioner Navarro, there is a lot of data with roundabouts reducing fatal and severe injury collisions. Just based on the overall design, you're reducing all the conflict points, you know, it's all right turns, and then you deflect going in and out of the roundabout. So you're slowing down the speed. So the collisions that are occurring are typically property damage only. Or very low injury. So they have been proven time and time again to really improve safety, slow down the speeds, and also, you know, you can provide really nice multimodal accommodations with them because they can also improve the capacity through the intersection. So you might not need as many lanes. There was a recent project constructed at the city of Napa. I don't know if you've seen all those roundabouts, but we did those GHD. We haven't had the post analysis yet, but we will be looking at it. But I did the post analysis for roundabout in Monterey County off the 1 and Holman Highway, and significant collision reduction. So I'm looking forward to looking at what we get from the city of Napa.
And how about, maybe it's too early about if you can't do them all at once. So I'm wondering what the sequencing is, and wondering especially where Commissioner Altman's pet peeve is, if that would be, where would that roundabout be in the sequence?
I don't know that right now, but that's a great question. Maybe they do start at one end or the other, but there will be a whole, so once they go through that phase, they got to go through again the alternatives and come to the preferred, and then they'll eventually go through the design plans and look at how to stage the construction appropriately and how they construct it. So, because they got to keep traffic moving at the same time.
Right.
So,
right.
Yep.
Okay. That's
so we are. I can add a little bit to that. We are discussing that because funding may not be available right away for $60 million to deliver this. So we might look at phasing a portion of it, but to be determined. We're going the part of the OBAG 3 fund round. Napa Valley Transportation Authority has requested $3 million from the regional to assist with getting the planning environmental portion of it started. So I mean, they are pushing it. So we're pushing to get the funding to start the process so we can deliver it sooner than later.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Navarro. This is actually one of the topics that I'm very passionate about in our city, traffic, speeding, traffic calming. Ms. Kleinschmidt, you may not know this, but I led the resident initiated traffic calming project for the speed cushions on Wetlands Edge. So I'm very familiar with our traffic calming process. So I have a couple questions, and then I don't want to go into all of my questions because I'd like to hear what our public comment is, but I do want to ask a few things. So maybe that may clarify some questions audience members may have. On the last slide, it talked about we have until tomorrow to give input, but then it also said that the draft LRSP is already out for stakeholder comment and public comment. Can you explain those sort of two parallel processes, how that's happening if the public hasn't even finished submitting their comments yet?
Sure. Yes, Vice Chair Wong. So we have different ways we're getting input. One is through the interactive map and the survey. And we are closing those this Friday because they've been active for several months. And so we want to close that so we can put those comments into the report, draft report, and then kind of, incorporate as needed. But the draft report is on the website for comments. And it's been extended. The draft report is August 5th. So that's the two timelines. We are closing interactive map and survey, and we're going to the draft report comments. And that is where they can leave more input.
Okay, and so you're soliciting comments on the draft LRSP from residents as well?
Yes.
Okay, great. Director Smithies, it was only last week that there was a dedicated email sent out asking for comment to be input on the interactive map. Will there be a similar request going out about the draft LRSP? Because I don't know if any of the residents are aware that they're being asked to comment on that. Or at least I haven't seen anything. Maybe there's an email in my inbox waiting for me.
That was something new that we tried. So thank you for asking that. That was, we got an email the evening of the council meeting saying, have we tried the ListGov? And so that was heard, and we took it. I asked that question. And so we tried that Friday, and wow, what a big jump we had. And then I know there was a posting tonight about the having up till Friday for the local roadway safety plan, but I think we should probably do another ListGov email on Friday, because that one's closing now. Now look at the report that's online, and please get out there and comment on it. That's a good point.
Thank you for doing that, because I know the two hot buttons in our city is traffic and water. And so I'm excited that everybody has the opportunity to give their input to you and to Ms. Kleinschmidt for this process, so it can be the best that it can be. I know from looking at the Office of Traffic Safety numbers that we are number 5 out of 103 cities of similar size to American Canyon for fatal and injury crashes. And being number 5 is very bad. It's not a good thing to be that high. That means there's only 4 cities worse than us. So I'm curious, how does the Office of Traffic Safety numbers, how does that fall into the mix of the data that you presented to us? Is it all the same underlying data?
Our data is directly from the statewide integrated collision database. So we're pulling collision records that are from SWTRS. That's the database that the state has. So I'm sure that's what the Office of Traffic Safety is using. We didn't put the ranking in there, but I'm sure that's collisions, including state highways and this, the overall. But where that could help in the funding is the HSIP. When they do look at awarding HSIP projects, they are going to look at your overall fatal and severe injury collisions as a city with your population base and see where you're ranking. So they might prioritize you over other cities because it is a very competitive process. So,
yeah. And I think, thank you. And I think that was part of the reason why we got traffic coming on Wetlands Edge, is because my neighbor was crossing the street in a crosswalk, and he had to jump out of the way to avoid being run over by a speeding car, but his dog wasn't so lucky. And I mean, neighbors 2 or 3 houses away heard the impact. And so the speed cushions have definitely helped on Wetlands Edge, and all the neighbors are very grateful we have them. And I know so many more neighbors on the other blocks want them as well. I mean, one of our neighbors, she got hit backing out of her own driveway with her kids in the car. So neighbors definitely feel unsafe even leaving their own driveways. And I know they're trying very hard to get traffic calming as well. And our process, it's documented, but to be honest, it's cumbersome. When we went through it, you had to be a homeowner to sign on to agree to traffic calming. So that totally disenfranchised anyone who rents, yet they live in our city, they vote in our city, they pay taxes in our city. So I'm excited to hear that we're going to have updates to the traffic calming guidelines. And I was wondering, Director Smithies, if you could give us more information on what kind of changes we'll be seeing to the traffic calming guidelines and process.
I actually asked, that's part of the scope of work with GHD. We haven't gotten that point yet. The first goal was the local road safety plan. So we haven't even touched on that yet, but it's that hopefully with the comments we're receiving that we can integrate that into the updated guiding plan.
Okay, well, and this is going to be my last comment before we go to public comment. One of the things I'm hopeful for, especially for the traffic calming changes, that you invite resident stakeholders. I saw the list of stakeholders that were invited to these working groups, and I saw the Bike Coalition, which is great. I saw the school district, which was great, but I didn't see anywhere in there for residents who may be stakeholders in this, who may have wanted to be involved. And so at least especially for the traffic calming guidelines, it would be great to have residents involved when you start working on these issues, because we live with this every day. And that's one of the reasons why I had suggested to our Parks and Rec director, Alexandra Ikeda, I said, you guys should have bicycles at City Hall so your staff can ride around the city on bicycles and understand what we as residents face when we're out there, trying to get from point A to B, how the bike lanes work, where the gaps are. Because I love our staff who live and work in American Canyon, and what we experience. But so many of our staff, they live other places, and so they don't get to experience it firsthand. Instead, they sort of have to hear the filtered view from like our input, or somehow gain this knowledge. They don't have the same firsthand experience. So that's why I really like it when residents can be directly involved. And so speaking of resident involvement, if there's no other commissioner comments, we can go to public comment.
Great. We have Beth Marcus. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, Ms. Marcus.
Good evening again. First of all, great presentation. It's the second time I got to hear it and see it, and second time is even better than the first time. But I do want to comment on Brent. I have to thank Brent because I don't know how many of you know, but I live on Melvin Road, and I sound like a broken record. But Brent has been absolutely fantastic for like the last, I don't know how many, 10 years or so. Brent has helped. We've complained about traffic on our road so many times. He's done the speed limit signs. He's done the flashing signs, your speed. He did the yellow stripes. He's done the dots. He's done everything humanly possible, except for throwing my body out in the middle there. And I think he's about ready to do that. But he's done a great job. And I don't know what much more you can do. I'm excited that we're going to get sidewalks finally. I mean, I have a sidewalk in front of my house, and I live right at Poco and Melvin. So getting out of my driveway is almost impossible. But with the sidewalks, what I'm concerned about, it's going to narrow our road to the point to where with people parked on the side of the roads, and the way people speed down the street, that it's going to create more issues. Because I know when I drive down Cassare, when people are parked on the sides of the road, which is everybody, and you're going down there and another car's oncoming, you literally have to stop in order to get through there. And I'm afraid that's what's going to happen on Melvin Road. That's one comment. And the other thing is the roundabouts. I noticed that they were going to do one on Rio Del Mar. That's one of the locations, possibly. I had a question. First of all, I have a comment. The current crosswalk on Rio Del Mar and the highway by 7-Eleven is totally on the wrong side. It should be more on the south side instead of the north side. Because if you're on Rio Del Mar and you're turning onto Highway 29 and there's someone crossing, the people who are backed up on Rio Del Mar trying to get on there gets pretty upset. And it's not enough time for the person to get across the highway. But with the roundabout there, I have a question. How does the pedestrian part, how does that work with the roundabout? I saw in one of the pictures where there's some crosswalk things, but I don't know how that works.
Can I respond or? Okay. Thank you, Beth, for the comments. So at a roundabout, you have a two-stage crossing through a median refuge area in between. So you're only crossing one direction of traffic at a time. And so you're essentially, looking at the lane and then making sure it's clear and they should yield to pedestrians. And then you're crossing, waiting in the refuge, and then crossing the other side. If there's issues, you can also enhance these crossing areas with those rectangular rapid flashing beacons that are pedestrian activated to bring some more visibility. But it has been proven that your yielding rates are significantly higher at a roundabout just due to that two-stage crossing.
Okay, thank you. I'm just curious how that's going to work. We'll see, I guess. Thank you. And again, thank you, Brent, for all that you've done. Erica, thank you so much for putting up with me all the time, you guys.
Next, we have Chris James. Mr. James, please unmute yourself.
Good evening this evening. Great presentation again. I really like the enthusiasm of everyone working on this, and the comments from the commissioners. I kind of agree with, I think, virtually everything that's been said tonight. A couple of things. Let me run down my list. Hopefully I can fit in 3 minutes. So the way that we design roads in America are kind of mixed. There's two types of roads and streets, and we kind of mix the both together. And I've sent you all an email this evening with something called STROADS, how we need to rethink how we're working on roads. STROADS are a combination of roads and streets. Roads are designed to carry traffic through very quickly, and streets are supposed to be for local access and much slower. So I guess what we have here is like a moving train, and we try to redesign our roads and throw all these different solutions at our roads. And we're kind of getting a mixed bag of things that are kind of making things a little more difficult in some areas and better in others. So I think, I guess my commentary is that you're all out there talking to people and influencing designs. And so I'd like you to Google and look at the video I sent out on STROADS to actually understand where the real problems are. But I think we are moving forward in the right direction. Let me see. Local issues. I'm glad Commissioner Wong mentioned the fatality on our street. I see people at night trying to cross that street, and people fly at night. People speed more on our street at night than during the day sometimes. Elliott Park runs the width of our city all the way from the wetlands all the way up toward the Safeway. There's not a single crosswalk running through that park. It crosses many streets. There's no single crosswalk there. I've caught myself before trying to cross the street. I think probably Commissioner Goff has been on that road. He knows that those streets you cross over through the park. It's a very nice park, long park, lots of people walking dogs. People on bicycles trying to cross down. There's step downs on the curb. There's no drop downs, and meeting on the other side. That should be on there. Fatalities and on 29 and that whole left turn on American Canyon heading north on 29. People, there's a house on Kimberly that gets struck. It was monthly or weekly at one point because they don't want to make that left turn on American Canyon, so they take it down to Kimberly and they're cutting across traffic. People are smacked into that house. You can see that the fence work they keep on putting up there on Kimberly. So I think it should be 2 left turns actually on northbound American 29 onto 29 off 29 onto American Canyon Road, but extending it would be a next good compromise. And I like the survey. I'm really glad that that message did go out and to get more data. I'm really appreciative of that. So I think it's our road designs are kind of flawed, and we're kind of caught into this trap where we have existing roads, but we need to start rethinking things. Other countries are actually actively redesigning their roads to make them safer and split up the difference between roads and streets, where we have this mixed bag. We have Stroads, which are trying to do the best thing or trying to do both jobs. So just, I encourage you to Google that. What else is there? And Melvin, I'm not sure what to do with Melvin, and maybe we should just make it so that people can't cut through at certain hours of the day. Just try and slow that traffic down. And again, thank you so much for working on this. Thanks.
Right. Oops. And next we have Karen Fritz. Please unmute yourself, Ms. Fritz.
Okay. Good evening. Again, great presentation, but I was a little concerned about the amount of roundabouts that are potentially being proposed on Highway 29. It looks more like going to a carnival. And since it is an actual highway with thousands of cars traveling up and down it every day, what about once we get through American Canyon with the roundabouts and we get to the lights in Vallejo? There would be a backup, would there not? And everybody would be kind of stuck like they are now, potentially. The same, you know, I don't know. It just seems like an awful lot of them to me. I know you're still in the presenting stage and trying to get things worked out, but it just looks like an awful lot of them. And the crosswalk question that Beth had was very good. I mean, it is a highway. People are in a hurry, and they're usually pretty irritable late in the afternoons. Not the nicest folks in the world, but you know, I think it could be very dangerous for somebody trying to cross the highway with a roundabout. And I think Highway 29 in itself is the reason we are number 5, Tammy. So those are just some of my concerns and thoughts on some of the design on this. And I guess that's about it. Thank you.
If you don't mind, Karen, I just want to respond. State Route 29 is a separate project. It's not part, we're just kind of capturing another project that's going on. It's being led by MVTA. They're looking at that corridor due to those issues. I'm sure there will be more public outreach for that, and they'll look at all the alternative signal roundabout and decide which one is the best moving forward.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Also, one more question, Erica. On the list of streets for the calming, you know, the street calming measures, I guess I'm probably the only one on Rio Grande Way that might have submitted anything, but they raced down Rio Grande as well, from Rio Del Mar all the way to the, what is that, Ring Neck? And it's like, I mean, in the mornings and at night, you can just hear them just zipping by terribly. So I would, you know, I'd love to see maybe Rio Grande get a spot on that list, and maybe Tammy can help me and we can work on maybe doing some, you know, the speed bump things or something like that in the future as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Wong, Beth Marcus has raised her hand again.
That's fine
Okay.
with me.
Okay. Ms. Marcus, please unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. I just forgot to say this, but we're having more and more tractor trailers coming down Poco Way and Melvin Road, and they're trying to turn the corner. And just the other day, one of them couldn't do it. He was backing up and he went through Les Lawson's field. But I'm seeing more and more of this happening. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I know they're not allowed to park there, but there's more and more coming down there and making a turn. I don't know if they just get lost off the highway or what the deal is.
Yeah, they're not supposed to be coming down there. So it just sounds like they may be lost or not adhering to the city's truck ordinance. So I mean, that's something we can connect with. I can connect with the Chief Greenberg on.
Okay, thank you.
If you have certain time frames when that's happening, that'd be helpful, unless it's just sporadic. But I'll report that back to Chief Greenberg.
Yeah, I think it's just sporadic. I did take a picture of one of them today, but it's beginning to be a little bit more common. I mean, I never saw it before, but now it's getting, I don't know, maybe once a week, if that. So that's it. Sorry.
So any more public comments, Nicole? Or?
No, we do not have any more public comments, Vice Chair Wong.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any further thoughts or comments based? Commissioner Altman?
I'm just going to sort of follow up on two of the comments on Beth's latest comment. Yeah, I think we unfortunately can realize that I don't know that they're lost. I think it's that they are also trying to avoid traffic, even though they are not supposed to be, and are trying to do things that they shouldn't be, some of the truckers. And then I'll also touch base on Karen Fritz's comment, because I cross Rio Grande and Rio Del Mar, that intersection, routinely. And in my estimation, it is one of the more hazardous intersections in the city, because at that point, Rio Grande is on a bit of a curve, and you can't really, and there usually is a larger SUV or van or something like that parked near the corner on Rio Grande. So you can't see all that well around the curve as you're on Rio Del Mar crossing. And so if you don't really wait at that stop sign for a little bit, just to make sure you haven't missed something, you are at risk. And and again, fortunately, there haven't been any major injury accidents that I know of at that intersection, but there have been a variety of property damage collisions there. And it's a stop only on Rio Del Mar, not on Rio Grande. And so I think that, helps lead to some of the problems, because people do go flying on Rio Grande. There's no doubt about that. I completely agree with the comments. That's all I got for now.
Commissioner Altman, I want to suggest that you still have a day to go to the LRSP interactive map and put a pin on your worst street intersection. Actually,
I believe I've already done that. So if there's anything on that, on the LRSP interactive map, that was probably me.
Thank you so much for participating. And Ms. Kleinschmidt and Director Smithies, I want to also add my thanks to everyone else. This is a great topic. I know our residents really appreciate it, and I hope you receive a lot of public input on the draft LRSP. Would it be correct to assume the page where they went to enter their comments on the interactive map, is that where they would find the draft LRSP to do comments? Or maybe you can describe to us how they find it?
Yes, it is on the same page, on the home page. So the same link will have the area where you need to go. And then once you hit that, you'll go to the draft page, and you'll be able to actually download it, look at the draft, and then type in any comments you have.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Director Smithies, did you want to add anything else, or?
No, thank you for the productive comments tonight and the feedback from the public that responded, as well as commissioners. This is it's helpful. This is how we get these things and make improvements. So, thank you.
Well, thank you both.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
So I guess we are ready for our next agenda item, which is the consent calendar for the minutes. Are there any motions?
I'll move to approve.
Before I second, which I'll be happy to do, I don't recall, but Vice Chair Wong, have you closed public comment?
Oh,
If not, you should.
okay. Public comment is closed for the local roadway safety plan. Thank you, Commissioner Altman.
And I will now second the motion on before us on the consent calendar.
Vice Chair Wong, would you like a roll call vote?
Yes, please.
Okay. Commissioner Altman,
Aye.
Commissioner Goff,
Aye.
Commissioner Navarro,
Aye.
Vice Chair Wong,
Aye.
and Chair Malari is absent this evening.
Okay, I guess we are ready for our public hearing on the Home 2 Suites major modifications. Director Cooper, is that your item tonight?
Thank you, Chair Wong. It is, and staff is asking for a continuance to your next Planning Commission meeting. The applicant has some additional ideas that they wanted to present to staff, and so we did have a presentation of that from the applicant, and we're evaluating some of their ideas. It wasn't possible to do all of that in time for tonight's meeting, so we're asking the commission to continue this to your next meeting.
Okay, can I ask a question about this?
Hmm?
So at our last meeting, as I recall, one of the reasons that we wanted to continue is that we wanted feedback from council. Will this give them also some time to weigh in and give input as well on their view of the undergrounding and how it works and long-term strategy and what all?
The commission might have thought differently. We don't have time to go to the council to talk about a comprehensive plan, but we did want to resolve how to address home to suites to enable them to begin construction and move forward, because they have a number of time frame constraints. And so the purpose for coming back to the Planning Commission was to resolve how we'll address home to suites, and then separately we'll go back to council and discuss a more comprehensive solution, which we'll bring back to the commission to discuss. But we wanted to kind of encapsulate the home to suites and cut them loose and get them going, because their their construction schedule is moving forward, and we wanted to avoid delaying them.
Okay. Thank you, Director Cooper.
But I have on good word that the council, is very supportive of a comprehensive solution. So I've been in communication with city manager, and so this approach that we're taking is one that helps to move home to suites forward with the knowledge that we'll be going to the council, and we expect them to be very receptive to a more comprehensive solution.
Excellent. Any commissioner comments on this? Okay, Nicole, do we have any public comment?
If you have comments on this item and you are waiting to speak, please raise your hand now. Going once, twice. No comments, Vice Chair Wong.
Thank you. So our public comments are closed. So we're ready to proceed to our next item. Is that, yes?
Mr. Cooper, do we need a motion for this?
We should.
Oh, thank you. Yes, we do.
Okay, do we have any motions?
Yes. I will move that we continue the public hearing on the home to suites major modification to revise condition 40 regarding overhead utilities and pole undergrounding until our next regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting, which is scheduled for August 25th at this point.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Roll call vote?
Yes, please.
Okay, Commissioner Altman,
Aye.
Commissioner Goff,
Aye.
Commissioner Navarro,
Aye.
Vice Chair Wong,
Aye.
and Chair Malari is absent this evening.
Thank you. So are we ready to move on to our business item, the comprehensive general plan update? I believe that's yours, Director Cooper.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair Wong, and Planning Commissioners. Yes, pleased to present to you the notice of preparation for the general plan update. We have very pleased tonight that we have two of our Rincon consultants, Anna Chowdhury and Leo Mina, and we'll be jointly presenting this item for you. I know that we have a PowerPoint presentation, and perhaps we could load that up.
Yeah, I have the PowerPoint presentation. This is Leo Mina, and I can get us started.
Thank you.
I am going to share my screen in just a sec. Can someone verify that you can see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so I'll get us started. So good evening, everyone. So the purpose of the following presentation is to provide the public with an environmental review scoping meeting for the City of American Canyons General Plan update. So there we go. So our agenda for this meeting is shown on the screen is as follows. I'll start with some introductions and then give you an overview of the project description, which in this case is the update to the general plan. I'll also discuss CEQA, or the California Environmental Quality Act, as well as all of the requirements and the processes. I'll also provide an overview of what scoping is and what the city is looking for from the public, from the public agencies and the public for this meeting. We'll also discuss the project schedule, next steps, how to submit comments, and finally we'll end with an opportunity for questions. Got it. So my name is Leo Mena. I am a senior environmental planner with Rincon Consultants, and I will be helping prepare the environmental impact report for this project. Anna Chowdhury is also on this call. She's the project manager and my colleague at Rincon. And you all know Brent Cooper, the community development director, who will also be taking on some of the slides. So just a brief introduction on CEQA. CEQA, or the California Environmental Quality Act, requires that the city convene a scoping meeting for the EIR, or Environmental Impact Report, for the general plan update. And the purpose of the meeting is to solicit comments from you, public agencies, and members of the public as to the potential environmental issues that could occur due to the project. Scoping is also meant to identify any feasible alternatives to the project or mitigation measures to avoid or minimize any impacts, any significant environmental impacts. And next up, I want to turn this over to Brent to give a little bit more of some details as to the general plan update.
Right. Thank you, Leo. Of course, we know that the original general plan was adopted in 1994. We've had quite a few amendments since that time, but we haven't had a comprehensive view of all of the policies and elements within the general plan. And so there has been a concern that over time, you can have inconsistencies form in between the elements. In addition, state law has radically changed since that time, and it's needed to take a fresh look to make sure that we have updated policies so that we have a legally defensible general plan. And so the approach, because of we'll say the wrench that got thrown into us because of COVID and austerity, and we all know about that, we've broken it down into two phases. This first phase is a technical update. And so this is more of ensuring that the general plan has its foundation is rooted in current state law and consistency among the elements. And so it's going to be somewhat, perhaps not as much fun as doing everything all together, but the goal here is to expedite status where we have a general plan that's legally defensible. And that way our city attorney, Bill Ross, can sleep well at night. Phase two would be a second part where we really dig into some of the issues. That's going to be a lot more fun. and visionary. We do have a vision, of course, in the first phase, but the second phase is going to be a lot more interesting. Also wanted to mention too that we're concurrently updating the housing element. This is a component of the general plan that state law requires every jurisdiction in the Bay Area update. And so we're feverishly working on that also with our Rincon and Mintier Harnish team to compile that. But it kind of has its own schedule and its own environmental review. Next slide, please. So I kind of mentioned and touched on some of the priorities for doing a two-phase approach. It's perhaps a little unconventional, but we do think that it's going to help all of us move forward with confidence. But I do think one of the main benefits is having a program EIR as a result, which is kind of the reason that we're kicking it off tonight. That's going to be tremendously helpful, as it has been with the Watson Ranch, Napa Logistics Park, other Broadway district, where we do a program EIR. It really helps streamline development review, which is a keystone to the city's economic development program. Next slide, please. I'll just kind of roll on to the next few slides. Of course, these are our existing general plan elements that we've mentioned that do need refreshing and ensuring consistency between them. Next slide. We'll be renaming and consolidating some of these elements. You'll see we have a mobility element, an environment element, and so there's some, you can do that in state law. You can combine some of the elements under a single banner. There's a new one that's required in accordance with state law called an environmental justice element. And this is really going to be something that dovetails with the City Council's direction to look at education, lifelong learning, and equity. It fits very, very well into environmental justice. And so that's all part of here of our phase one. Next slide, please. One of the changes that might surprise some of the folks perhaps north of American Canyon is the general plan study area. If you look towards the center part, of course, of this map, you see kind of that pink tone color. That's our city limits. And then just outside of that, there's some purple hatch line for our urban limit line. The city general plan study area, of course, is much broader than that. And the reason for this is it's depicting our historic water and sewer service area. And so all that property out there is either under the city's jurisdiction for water service or sewer service. And that does have a bearing on our planning. It's very focused and limited, but nevertheless, we all know how important water and sewer is. You don't have that, you don't have development. So it is something that this general plan update would acknowledge, but it does have limited applicability to certain policies, but they're very important policies. Next slide. We're focusing on very, very limited land use changes. We have some general plan inconsistencies with the land use that's out there. I would point to Donald Say Elementary School, the middle school. That is on property that has a general plan designation for housing. It's going to be a school for as long as we know. So that would be an inconsistency. Obviously, housing is not getting built there, it's a school. So where we have a few areas where there's inconsistencies, we're making those corrections. And then there are some foreseeable land use needs related to some of the school district property. And then you might notice a blue kind of almost rectangle in the northeast side of the town up at the top of your map. And that's reflecting changes for the Watson Lane Paoli annexation application that's ongoing right now. Next slide, please. We did present the proposed notice of preparation to the City Council, and at their request, they would like to see an amendment to include an urban limit line extension to encompass the Hess Laird property. That's in the northeast portion of the city, east of Highway 29 and north of the Paoli property. And there is currently an application in Napa County for an amendment to industrial uses. And so this is something that the City Council thought ought to be included in our urban limit line, because we're all very aware of a broader county policy where urban uses are in cities, rural uses and agriculture is in the county. And so this was something that was interesting. The next slide, which I guess we should go to, shows some roadway mobility plan amendments. Probably not a great slide to see, but you can see up in the upper right-hand side, there is kind of a green line and a pin mark with the number 1 on it. Thank you there. In conjunction with the county application is an extension of Newell Drive between where it's planned to be extended with the, thank you there, up to South Kelly Road to the north, as you kind of go up on the map. And so that's a key issue for the City Council to help complete the city's circulation network, hence including that in an urban limit line and having some authority on that. Other changes proposed through this first phase is to add the West Side Connector. We went through quite a lot of work with our Citizens Committee on an appropriate connection for that. That's the number 2 on this map. In conjunction with that, it would delete the current land circulation element connection between Commerce Court and Eucalyptus, so that would be deleted. The Watson Ranch project has realigned the connection between Highway 29 and Newell from South Napa Junction Road to Rio Del Mar, so this change would reflect that. And then also, as we talked a little bit about with the prior presentation, there's a variety of amendments proposed for Highway 29 through the NVTA project initiation document, the PID document. And so that's a very important policy document that's nearing completion. So our general plan would reflect those decisions. Next slide, please.
And I think
that's where I turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Brent. So I just wanted to cover, as Brent mentioned, some changes in state law. I wanted to cover one of them that will show up in both the mobility element as well as the environmental impact report. And that's the change as a result of SB 743, which changed the way in which we look at transportation impacts. So instead of the focus that was usually done on level of service or LOS traffic delay, there has been a shift to look at vehicle miles traveled, or VMT. And I'll talk a little bit about in the next slide how we measure that, but ultimately it is needed to adhere to current state law. So this fun graphic shows a little bit of just what vehicle miles traveled is. It really is what it sounds like. It is the number of miles traveled by a vehicle. So in this example, you have someone in their home, drives 2 miles to get coffee, then goes to work, drives 11 miles back home, then goes to drive and gets gas for a mile, goes to a grocery store, and then drives another 2 miles back home. So if you add that all up together, it totals 16 miles. So the VMT for this home-based residential generated VMT would be 16 miles. So when you start seeing VMT in documents, just kind of think about this graphic. That's really what we're talking about here. And it was really born out of the state's goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and reduce VMT. So a little bit more about CEQA. The city has determined, as Brent mentioned, that a programmatic environmental impact report will be prepared and that it will be necessary to evaluate the impacts under CEQA. This EIR will allow for the disclosure of potential impacts on the environment to the public and also allow for public input. The EIR will identify ways to minimize, reduce, or avoid environmental impacts. As a part of this process, the city would develop a mitigation monitoring program to ensure the implementation of mitigation identified in the EIR. And as Brent mentioned, this is a really great way to streamline projects in the future. So this graphic here shows the CEQA process. So the process begins with the notice of preparation, or the NOP, where the city solicits input from public agencies and members of the public. So that's actually the part of the process we're currently in. The NOP was released on July 5th, and the scoping period closes on August 4th. And right now we're having our scoping meeting to solicit scoping comments from the public. After the scoping period closes, the city will review the scoping comments and will continue preparing the draft EIR. And when the draft EIR is published, it will be made available for a total of 45 days, and the public will be notified of its release. And during that period, members of the public and public agencies can review the document and provide comments on the content and the findings in terms of the environmental impacts. So when all the comments are received, the city will prepare the final environmental impact report, which will include responses to comments, as well as any revisions to the draft EIR that are made because of those comments. And then when the final EIR is completed and the final EIR is published, this will be considered by the Planning Commission in a hearing, followed by City Council, who will ultimately make a decision on the project. So for this scoping process, I just wanted to clarify what scoping comments are for any member of the public that wants to provide a scoping comment. So what the city is really looking for today is public input on the environmental analysis. What are topics or issues of concern? What are potential alternatives to the project that may have not been considered yet? And any proposed mitigation measures to minimize any potential impacts on the environment. So that's really what we're looking for today, and any additional scoping comments. So these are all of the environmental topics that we'll consider in our EIR. I won't read all of them, but you can see on your screen that it's going to be many, many topics. So if you have any concerns about any of these topics, now would be the time to raise them in a scoping comment. So this is how the EIR is going to look. So we'll have an intro, an executive summary, a project description. Each environmental impact will have a setting, an impact discussion, and then if necessary, mitigation measures. We'll also discuss any alternatives and any other impacts. And again, this is a program EIR. So we're going to look at it in a programmatic way, meaning we'll look at it as a series of connected actions rather than one specific project, because it's a large vision. So I just have a couple more slides left. This shows the timeline. I'll focus on where we are now. So in yellow, mid to late 2022, where the plan is being prepared, the proposals for rezoning and holding of initial hearings. Late 2022 to early 2023, the draft plan will be submitted. Environmental review will happen then. Spring of 2023, the revised plan, finalized zoning, and the adoption of the plan. So here's how to submit scoping comments. You still have a week. Scoping comment period closes on August 4th, 2022. So that's next Thursday by 4 p.m. So please get your scoping comments that way. The email is shown on the screen, njones@cityofamericancanyon.org, or if you prefer to send it via regular mail, you can send it to the address shown above. And I will keep this slide up at the very end just so that people can write it down. So I'll come back to that. And then just finally, to stay involved with the general plan process, you can look at the website, amcan2040.org. And I think we'll take questions now. And I am just going to leave the last slide up for any member of the public to know how to submit scoping comments. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
And that concludes staff's presentation. We're very looking forward to your comments.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Commissioners, do you have any comments or feedback at this time? I'm not hearing anything from my fellow commissioners at this time. Nicole, should we go ahead and open public comment for this?
Sure. Excuse me, of course. We have Chris James. Mr. James, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, I thought I'd ask a question, seeing as it looked like there may not be much discussion on this tonight. So it was a good presentation. It's exciting to see the city continue to morph and change and make improvements. It was interesting to see that the Hess property and whatever that's called over there is included in the update, even though the inclusion into I guess the city of the urban lines haven't changed yet. It hasn't been finalized. So it's kind of interesting to see that we are going ahead and planning for that to happen. And I guess it's a confidence level in that. But at the same time, we have a ballot initiative that's popped up for the Green Island Vineyards, Measure J, and that's not included. I know it's not as part of the scope tonight, but it is kind of, I think, still relevant, and how that that could impact the current plan and the future plan, and how that can differ in the process for reviewing that, you know, especially CEQA and all these other legal things that go on. And I'm sure the city's got this covered, but I don't understand that process. And I think a lot of people out there are a little confused right now, how there's some inconsistencies between the Hess thing and the Green Island thing, and who gets to say what really happens. So does LAFCO still get a say on the Green Island Vineyards property, and we'll then start working on the process? If the council says no or yes, how does that change the zoning? If the council actually says no, even after the initiative passes, does it still get rezoned? It's, you know, I'm very concerned about the environmental impact of this along the, you know, the Napa River there. So anyway, so it's the inconsistencies. I would like someone to maybe explain the process of LAFCO and the council and the ballot initiative, if possible, if it's in scope tonight. I'd love to hear that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. I would love to answer that. So under state law, an initiative process can amend the general plan. And so recently the city council was presented the initiative, and they voted to allow the voters to decide whether to approve the initiative or not. And so if the initiative is approved, that action will amend the general plan. If the voters don't approve it, then the general plan would not be amended with respect to the urban limit line and pre-zoning and an amendment toward land use component of the general plan. So when we're looking at what is proposed here, it's not necessary or maybe even a good idea to propose land uses or amendment to the urban limit line as part of the city's process, because that's going to be decided by the voters. Did that component of your question get answered?
No, I'm kind of confused if LAFCO still gets a say in it then, right?
Oh, LAFCO does not decide urban limit lines.
No, but I mean if we get to decide to include it in that, they don't get decided. I thought
the urban limit line is not decided by LAFCO.
Okay, so what do they control? It's all about a control issue, right? You know, scope of control, right? I think.
So the initiative J would amend the urban limit line. It would amend our general plan, and I'm not an expert. I think pre-zoning for the Green Island Vineyards, and so that's totally within the authority of the initiative. LAFCO does not have a part in any of that.
So if it's a yes, it's now part of the city.
Oh no, the urban limit line is a boundary that is designated for an intended ultimate annexation. But
okay,
the annexation process is dependent upon a host of additional processes beyond amending the urban limit line.
So to add what Brett just said, in short, it's sort of a condition precedent to that process.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, so annex, it won't be annexed yet then. Okay. So
Oh, there's many more steps
okay.
Needed before annexation could occur.
Because I still think that, well, there's some, yeah, okay, all right, okay. Yeah, I think you've answered it as best you can tonight. Because I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just a layman trying to understand the process.
Yeah, we could maybe have a workshop with the Planning Commission on the annexation process. It's, to me, very interesting because it's complex.
Yes.
I'm having worked on myself on, I've lost track of how many, but I think 6 annexation applications in the city. I have a lot of working knowledge on it.
Okay.
Director Cooper, I think that's a great idea. I read the attachment from the April meeting that talked about the annexation process and that it's going to expire in 2030 and there's some things that need to be done beforehand, or if not, it gets trickier. So it does sound very complex and interesting. I'm new to this whole general plan process, so sort of, I guess, piggybacking on our public comment, I'm curious. So this initiative, it amends our general plan directly, and it doesn't go through planning, it doesn't go through city council, it's just voila, done. So is it possible that when general plan changes get made by voter initiative, could that potentially trigger any inconsistency elsewhere in our own general plan, or us with like the county general plan, or how things sort of just, I guess, build on each other?
That might be diving a little deep into the question, because this isn't an agendized item tonight.
Okay. Okay,
but
I appreciate
needless to
that.
say, an initiative
will
affect those changes. And that's probably as much as appropriate to say, given that it's not an agendized item.
Yeah, and that can be revisited further later, but the Measure J item is completely separate from this item. If the voters ultimately do approve Measure J, that will sort of funnel together in that ultimate analysis that takes place with the general plan. But right now, without it, without that vote having occurred yet, it's just not really on the table at this moment.
Okay, that makes sense. It would be revisited later. Okay. Oh, I did have a question about public comment. I know that for our residents who want to participate in the general plan, they do get, I guess, our planning notification of our planning meetings that get sent out. I'm curious, when we have key scope and comment requests like this one, and my apologies if I missed it already, does that get sent out like in a separate email, sort of saying, hey, time for public comment, or some just, part of our general plan process separate from our planning commission process?
I think I might turn that one over to Nicole as part of notification generally for things that come to the planning commission.
So whenever we do a public meeting, we notice through a number of different ways. So we send out the Gov delivery notices similar to what is sent for planning commission notifications, and we post the notifications on the website as well. And I don't want to confirm that Gov delivery was sent out separately from the planning commission agenda without double checking, but I'm fairly certain we did a separate notification. This scoping meeting was combined with planning commission. And I believe, Director Cooper, the intent was because we generally have a better attendance at planning commission than we do at our scoping meetings.
That's correct. The state law is really seeking input from governmental agencies on the environmental document. And we thought we might get a little more mileage by including it in the planning commission meeting, not only to help keep the planning commission informed, but also to increase resident participation.
And one thing I can add is when I sent out the Planning Commission agendas, I send that out to, because we have different mailing lists that the Gov delivery notices go to, and I send it out to everyone. So that includes people who have just signed up for public notices, but maybe not necessarily meeting notifications. So we do as broad of a notification as we possibly can.
Oh, great.
Could I add one more thing? Just the NOP itself also includes like information about this meeting, and that was sent to the state clearinghouse and the county clerk as a way of engaging with public agencies, as Brent was mentioning, which is one of the purposes of the scoping meeting, public agency engagement. So that was one of the ways in which outreach was also done for this, to comply also with the CEQA process.
And that brings up the fact that this was also noticed in the newspaper. And so then the notice was also done through Gov Delivery, because when we did the NOP, we sent out a Gov Delivery notice. So.
Oh, well, thank you. I was just piggybacking off Director Smithy's comments, how I guess she was commenting how a separate email was sent out, just specifically asking for comment for the LRSP. And they noticed like a surge in comments between, I guess, the presentation tonight and I guess the last presentation, and potentially triggered by the email. So that's why I was just curious how this was, announced, because this is such an important topic, and I don't want anyone to miss this opportunity that they have.
I'll check notes with her too and see if maybe there was some special sauce that she has to get people interested.
Hey, traffic and water, put that in the subject line.
We got that too.
Yes, I'm excited to see this starting, and I like the name of the mobility element.
It's a better way of looking at it.
Yeah, we're going to be mobile. So thank you so much for the presentation. I guess any other commissioner comments on this topic?
I had one question. Is in the general update, is it going to address climate change and kind of codify as well that we do not want to have any more fossil fuel stations?
Well, mercifully, the fossil fuel station has been answered. And so it is in our general plan today and will stay along with the ordinances. State law does require greenhouse gas emission considerations. I'm not sure if our Rincon team here is an expert on that component of state law, but feel free to add to that if you do know.
Yeah, well, our CEQA does require an evaluation of potential impacts on greenhouse gas emissions. So I am not 100% sure what the guidelines are for the City of American Canyon. I'd have to check with our GHG expert on that, but they would be considering consistency with plans, including state plans for greenhouse gas emissions reductions. And yeah. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, the state general plan guidelines requires consideration of greenhouse gas emissions. So just once again, getting our foundation in place of complying with state law and bring everything up to a standard is going to feel a lot better than it does today. There's more we can do, but it's good.
If I can jump in, CEQA now requires evaluation of energy as part of the project, so that would fall under also under the energy evaluation for the general plan update.
Okay, good, great, thank you.
And to piggyback on Commissioner Navarro's comment, Director Cooper, I think you're aware that we do have a climate action committee, and there is a resolution, I think, being drafted. It has not been reviewed yet by council. So if that were to pass, how does that get rolled into the general plan? Does that have an influence?
I know I reviewed some of the draft plan at your meeting with the committee about a week ago. Most of what would be, if what I saw is ultimately adopted, those would be characterized as implementation measures. And we do want to make sure that we have policies in the general plan to support them. I think with what has been done thus far, I wouldn't expect there to be any inconsistencies, but there could be things that we might add to our general plan, perhaps, if necessary, to bolster support. But I think we may have it covered already.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
I do think highlighting some of those elements to the public will garner extra engagement, especially of the youth in the community.
You know, I wonder if there is a way to maybe do like a dummy's guide to the general plan. You know, what is it? How does it impact me? I'm annoyed by my neighbor's barking dogs. Is that covered by the noise element? I mean, I know it sounds kind of silly, but sometimes I just wonder, I mean, even as a layperson, I am learning so much by going through this process. And I'm being educated every month by you and by other experts who give us presentations. And so for the average resident who doesn't take opportunities of these meetings, they're just that little bit more further removed, I think.
Yes, I think the simplest way to describe the general plan is the constitution for development. And so every ordinance, capital improvement plan, all need to be supported by policies in the general plan. And that was one of the reasons when the city council directed staff to prepare an ordinance to prohibit gas stations, we had to go back and amend the general plan because there weren't any greenhouse gas policies in the general plan. And so if we were just to adopt an ordinance to prohibit gas stations, someone might say, well, what's your policy basis for that? So we went back and amended the general plan, added those policies, and now we have consistency between what we're doing and what the general plan is saying we should do for our future of our city.
Yeah, it's a slow foundational process. Yeah. Okay, so I guess if our commissioners have nothing, do we have anything further? Okay, well, thank you so much for the presentation. And comments are due August 4th.
That's right. And I'm just have to say how happy I am to be able to present this to you and introduce you to some of the team that's working really hard on this. We have been given a tight deadline. I know that it's a lot of effort on our consultants' part. They're the ones that really get the work that has to be done to do it. So really appreciate that. And we're looking forward to enabling our city attorney to sleep well.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Mina, and I'm sorry I'm going to mangle your name, Ms. Chowdhury. Thank you.
There you go. You got it. Thank you.
Vice Chair Wong, just a formality. You need to close the public comment period.
Okay, public comments are now closed. Thank you, Nicole. Are we ready to move on to our management and staff oral reports or active planning projects?
I'm ready. If you are.
Oh, great. Did William get the night off?
Okay, so
you get me instead.
Yeah, William and Bill aren't here.
Right. Let's see. I can kind of run you through. We have a lot of projects that are going on. All of our staff are working really hard. We're working to find staff augments for them in a tight labor market because we really have a lot of work that we're getting through our department. Some of the highlights on discretionary projects is PG&E has applied to reduce its traffic impact fee, and so we're considering their analysis on whether that's worthy. There is in our municipal code, there is an opportunity for applicants to request a reduction in traffic impact fees when it's justified, and that is a decision that the code directs the city council to ultimately make. So this is a recently submitted, mainly the Public Works Department is in charge of evaluating it, and that will ultimately go to the city council. Let's see, Oat Hill, I think this was maybe in process last meeting. There's been some grading evaluations on Oat Hill. There was an upper tier and a lower tier, parcel A up here, B down below. And as the applicant looked at the soil studies more precisely, they need to flatten the slope from this steep to this steep. And so it kind of had some ramifications for the way both sites laid out. So they've been able to keep the same number of units, mostly the same building size, mostly the same architecture. It's a minor modification, and so staff approved that, and then hopefully they'll be able to move forward. I know the applicant, I think, has a grading permit application, and I thought they would have started already. The hotel at the Ruins in Watson Ranch, we provided comments for that in June, and I expect we'll be getting a resubmittal for that. The hotel application as a design permit will come to the Planning Commission at some point, probably in the fall. We have the residence at Napa Junction. This is the property just north of the Canyon Ridge Apartments. Big project, a lot of complex issues that we raised in our first letter to the applicant. And we just last week, I think on Friday afternoon, got a resubmittal from the applicant on that. So there's a lot of work to go through on that project. Let's see, we have somebody that's interested in building a car wash on the Fabry statuary site. And so we provided comments to them back in May, and they have told us that they are not deterred by the comments we gave them, and they're moving forward with a conditional use permit application. So I expect the next step will be the actual application.
I had a question.
Mm-hmm.
So would a business like a car wash, would they use recycled water or potable water in their business?
They will be required to use recycled water because of our zero water footprint. And also too, there are ordinances about how water is used, and car washing for potable, it needs to be recycled water. And that was what our message back to the applicant. And they weren't deterred.
Mm-hmm. And is that how so how does it work in other cities who may not have the capability like ours to provide recycled water? Are they still using potable water for car washes?
Not sure.
So our existing car wash, do they use recycled water as well already?
I know specifically that the Chevron station does, but I haven't had a conversation about the other one. Maybe it does, but I can't tell you for sure because I haven't specifically asked about it.
Okay, thank you.
I would guess they have, but I haven't specifically. Let's see, Napa Logistics project. It's pretty much built out now with the PG&E project. And as it turns out, the assumptions in the original approval assumed a much more intensive project than has ultimately happened. And so the applicant has proposed some changes to mitigation measures. You know, they're based on this much development and they've got this much. So they've applied to modify some of their conditions to reflect more like what actually happened. That is going to be going to the city council. The area of concern is traffic improvements. That's through the purview of Public Works Department. So they have the heavy lifting on this one. On the Giovannoni Logistics Center, the EIR public review comment period ended last week, and we have a bundle of letters that our team is evaluating. And so ultimately, you know, there'll be answers to that. Typically, there is an amendment to the environment impact report called the final EIR. It's a document of errata and changes. And then we'll be bringing that to the Planning Commission, likely in the fall. The SDG 217 warehouse project that the Planning Commission approved the beginning of last year is going to be going to the City Council on appeal in September. So fingers crossed that will be the last meeting on that one. We just have a whole lot of development going on. You heard the model homes for Watson Ranch are getting ready to be done. Of course, we have the Lemos Point project well underway. So we have a lot of construction projects going on. And then, you know, we're working very hard on the housing element and the general plan, and we'll be bringing things back to you and others on that. Thank you to the commissioners that have helped out with the housing element survey. I think Nicole, who's received all of the input, it would make the surveys for the local road and streets plan blush. I think we've beat them by far.
Yeah, they should have been at Meet Me in the Street, right?
Yeah, that's right.
How many months has it been open?
And what better place to have a local streets plan survey at the streets? But anyway, I like to tease them. They do a great job. But I want to toot our horn too. And I know that our staff is, and Nicole in particular, has been working really hard. She has coordinated all of these outreach efforts and compiled the information, and was able to get it translated into Spanish and Tagalog on short notice. She's been really working hard, and I'm very grateful. Let's see, and the Paoli Watson Lane annexation, Rincon, same group that spoke to us tonight, is our consultant on the environmental review for the annexation, and they're working very hard on that as well. So we have a lot of things going on. And then finally, I just wanted to conclude, and I know there've been talk about when are we going to go back live. All the other commissions have gone back to a hybrid model. City Council, of course, has been doing that now for a couple of months. And it's our turn, the Planning Commission, to return to the City Council chambers in a for real sense with a hybrid meeting model at our next meeting in August. And I know that Nicole will be organizing kind of a dry run practice, because obviously it's a little different setup than we used to do in the old days, and obviously what we're doing here online. Nicole, did you have any comments maybe on the transition?
I spoke with City Clerk Teresa Gelfus earlier today, and I'm not sure that there will be much of a training that's required. I might ask you guys to come in a few minutes early for the next meeting. We've made some improvements to the technology in council chambers. It's going to be from your end very, very much like it used to be with the in-person meetings. So, but it'll be nice to be back.
It'll be different, and And she can easily transition to becoming an airline pilot.
I will now have 3 monitors and a whole set of keyboards. So.
Yeah, or a traffic control operator. Perhaps that's more appropriate.
So when you say hybrid, does that mean we will be either, as commissioners and I guess staff, will be either online or in person? Is that what you mean by hybrid? Or hybrid in that the people attending will be, who's hybrid?
So I'm going to get further clarification and direction from the clerk and city manager regarding that. Public, with city council meetings, most of the city council is currently in chambers. Council member or Vice Mayor Abadamos is on maternity leave, so she's been using Zoom, but with further information to come.
Well, thank you, Nicole. I know it's, I know I'm juggling doing hybrid meetings. I work with people in the room and people attending from working at home, and it's a lot to coordinate. So thanks to all the work you're going to be doing with it. But it does bring, I remember Commissioner Wong raising that issue, so of how more of the public could participate if we had the ability, if the public had the ability to kind of dial in, so to speak, and virtually participate. So now that's one, I guess, maybe positive outcome of COVID, and we can keep the virtual involvement and still meet in person and have that interaction. So, sounds good.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Navarro. I thank you for your extra work, Nicole, but I do agree that I think it has enabled more of the public to participate in an easier manner. And I think we can take advantage of that as we do more general plan meetings and review, and, you know, let people realize, hey, you can do this from the comfort of your own home, you know, and if there was like even a way, like if we have a long meeting, if they could just somehow just sign up and get a text message, okay, your topic's coming on in 10 minutes, hop on now, right? Wouldn't that be like perfect?
Well, something I would like to point out, and I was actually Vice Chair Wong pointing this out when we were at Meet Me in the Street together earlier this month, is that something that's come out of COVID and also our new software upgrades is the e-comment feature. So the public has the ability to comment on agenda items prior to the meeting and also up until the meeting ends. The e-comment feature is available, and that's delivered to commissioners in real time. So as the comments are received, they are sent to you.
And I think that's great. One of the things I found with e-comment, though, is that there's no way to respond back to the person unless you respond during the meeting. Whereas before, in the old way, it used to be an email, and I could just at least write them back a quick note acknowledging their comment. But anyways, and thank you, Nicole, for all your hard work organizing the tour of Lemos Point. I really enjoyed it. It was very fascinating. Thank you.
It was my pleasure. I'm glad everybody was able to attend.
Director Cooper, did we cut you off? Were you done with
No, thank you. I'm all done.
Okay, any further? I see Mr. Ross has joined us, or maybe not. Do we have any other commissioner comments or anything else before we adjourn? Any?
Well, happy birthday to Commissioner Altman.
Oh yeah, happy birthday.
Thank you.
I hope you're doing something other than this to celebrate.
For tonight, this is about it, but you know.
Doesn't get better than this.
we could serenade you.
Thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yes. Okay, well, let's adjourn the meeting. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks.
All right, good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Brent and Nicole. Nicole, for all your work for Limo's Point. That's great.